אשא עיני אל ההרים, אשא עיני אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, מאין יבוא עזרי, מאין יבוא עזרי, מאין יבוא עזרי. Adonai mi yagur bo halecha mi yishkan bahar kodechecha, God who abides in your house, who dwells in your mountain, those who are upright, who do justly, and who speak the truth in their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame, who scorn the lawless and honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may do not retract, who do not exploit others, who would never take bribes, those who live in this way, the way in which Valerie Weitz lived, they shall never, ever be shaken. Amen. El Harachaman, O sweet God, you have taken a beloved one from us. We gather now and raise our voices in prayer, in unity, across faiths and across boundaries, generations. We look for purpose now. God, may we find this in you and in one another, and in the story of one whose life's determination made it possible for a family to thrive. Death has taken Valerie from us. She is missed. The generosity in her heart, the hope she had for generations that would succeed her, the faith she showed to those who came before her, these remain a part of a precious legacy. Naught but emptiness can leave the space that memory leaves behind. A reading in our tradition tells us that we do not despair, though, because we are more than a memory that slowly fades into darkness. With our lives, we give life. So something of us continues to move in the cycle of darkness, death, light, and life. I invite you, if you wish, to join with me in the recitation of the 23rd Psalm. We say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou spreadest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Amen. Ata imadi. Words mean, you are with me. The faith of the psalmist is echoed in your presence here today, all of you, and all of you who are connecting with our worship and our service of remembrance virtually, or later if you're watching and remembering Valerie, you are expressing consolation and support to the family. You should only know how much that means. A great deal. I want to invite you, if you wish, at the conclusion of our service here, to join us for a service of interment at the Mayfield Cemetery that will immediately follow our gathering here, after which we will gather at the library at Fairmount Temple on Fairmount Boulevard in Beechwood. Up until 4:30 p.m. this afternoon, the family will be receiving friends. Of course, they invite your continued gestures of condolence, your remembrances, your loving thoughts, your guidance over these upcoming days and weeks to come. Contributions, if you wish to honor Valerie's memory, are invited to one of three prospective organizations. I reached out to you, Mark, last night. I don't know if you saw my text, but there's the face-to-face Holocaust education program. I don't know if the link has been posted. Has it? Okay, great. So that charity, along with the Maltz Museum of Jewish Heritage, or the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, in all these ways, if you can be generous and be good with these causes that meant so much during her lifetime, and to which she contributed with her own generosity of substance and spirit, you'll be doing goodness for all. For those I haven't met, my name is Rob Nosenchuk. I'm one of the rabbis at Anshe Chesed Fairmount Temple. And it's my honor to help this loving family pay tribute today. There is a famous play called Angels in America, which begins with a rabbi offering a eulogy for an immigrant woman of courage, vision, and determination. The rabbi says, "This woman cannot be described by her attributes. Justice can't be done to her dimensions. She was not a person, but a whole kind of person. One who crossed an ocean, who brought with her to America villages that she left of struggle. And she fought for the family, for the home, so that you would not grow up here in a strange place, in a melting pot. Descendants of this immigrant, you do not grow up in America," the rabbi says. "You do not live in America. No such place exists. Your clay is the clay of some shtetl. Your air, the air of the steppes, the unforested grasslands of Europe. Because she carried that old world on her back across the ocean. And she put it down here, and she worked it into this earth so that you might pass it to your children, an ancient culture and a home of value." It may just be me. I happen to be drawn to this particular moment in that passage of dramatic literature. But in the recent days of spending time on purpose trying to be absorbed in the essence of the memories of the family members of Valerie Weitz, so that we might prepare to hold her life up for its value today. Even though it seems to me she rarely made the journey she took and the sacrifices and risks to carry that metaphoric clay and ground and air of that Czech village in Trebuchet raised more than 8 or 9 decades ago. It ought to be said that words do fail to adequately describe the dimensions of such an epic journey and the kinds of things that Valerie's eyes saw since early in her life, all the way until its end, her attachments in this world. It's entirely possible that in a world that has treated our people as harshly as this, that her journey could have ended or certainly become scarred permanently multiple times along the way before she'd ever have the opportunity to raise a family, to be in the company of loved ones, to build a new life in America. But that's exactly what she was determined to do. Surmounting challenges to make affirmation and positivity, hope, newness, to all dimensions of the world across the ocean, where she'd find and adapt fairly swiftly to new language, new love, culture, art, friendship, wisdom, and richness and blessing. Blessings to be a mutual caregiver between her and many members of her family, and to receive care from loved ones, even to her dying breaths. That she died having just been in the embrace of her granddaughter, Dr. Emily Weitz, warming Emily's hands with her own, and with the opportunity to be reminded of all the people waiting to embrace her in a world to come. That she conveyed in these final days her affection to her children, and even through the pain and confusion and disorientation that came with her age. These are gifts that remind us not to give up on what might be transpiring between us and the people whose life energies are shifting from their bodies into the world of the spirit. But then again, that's also the way Valerie strived to treat people, including those who might have otherwise moved to a further awareness outside of her efforts. Bonding with Valerie, as long as you were honest and decent and prepared to follow her instructions precisely, bonding with her was a lifelong thing. I'm told she was a true keeper. She maintained ties. She was your aunt, your sister-in-law, your cousin, the spouse of your cousin, the mother of your friend, or the neighbor of the mother of your friend. You had her with you permanently. I'm not saying everyone was in. She could be stubborn and opinionated, and sometimes made the mistake of being right, rather than being open to learning that someone else had a different path to being right. I think in some way the kind of affection and loyalty in her shrewdness and somewhat guarded character surpasses typical human efforts that we encounter, and that may be owed to the friend of her father's, whose righteous act made it possible for her and her family, under nearly impossible conditions, to evade the Nazis after an incredible set of efforts, already to survive her return to Trebuchet and be hidden from what surely would have led to her death in the Holocaust. And instead, for her to be the first live Jew that the Russian troops liberating that village would have encountered in multiple weeks when they found her and helped her emerge into the light of day. Her childhood was not a childhood. She knew of fear for her life and for her mother and her father before a child should have to worry about their mother or father. When she emerged into the light of life back as a child survivor, she surely knew inside her soul what loyalty and courage and commitment looked like. She packed what she saw and experienced into her backpack and carried it on what must have been a terrified backbone across the world. Like most everything else, if she hadn't learned how to do it by her father's precise instruction, then she self-taught her way to a more healthy and stable shape, to stay strong, smart, alert, cautious, the way her father had taught her to be, and to maintain the disposition that her mother, Ella may, I understand, have needed her to have, to emerge safely as their only child, and ultimately one day to become Dick's wife, his caregiver, his love, and later his surviving spouse for more than 3 decades. A family's proud matriarch. We gather today with Bruce and Marie, with Shelley and Mark, who feel keenly aware of the strong fabric of life their mother and mother-in-law wove, attaining a singular status among many of their friends because she lived so deeply into their life's journeys. Even through the struggles of recent years, an ever-present, vivid, unrelenting example of a life structured to push back obstacles out of the way, especially for people who needed her as they experienced difficulties, for people life graced her to see and love and admire, namely her grandchildren. For Emily and her Tim, for Matt, Carrie, and her Rick, and Valerie's cherished great-granddaughter, and the newest sheriff in town who knows exactly what she wants, Noah Kelly Schloss. Bruce says that it's not like his mom wandered her way to living to a ripe old age. She was a person with a plan, a precise plan. Instructions to remind herself of priorities, face up to the ways that life presents you choices. To Valerie, it seems to me there were two ways to face up to hard choices. There was the way that she instructed you, and there really wasn't a second way. That was it, just the one way. She had opinions about what lane to drive in on every road, which parking space was worth waiting for, and which ones to pass up. Precise recipes, including which burner on the stove to use and which ones to leave empty. She took it upon herself when it became clear that her home was best suited to play host to family Sunday night dinners, to make those dinners fashioned in exactly the image she wanted. Her desire to include people in a certain way. In Jewish tradition, the essence of gathering for such special moments, set-apart moments, is called Kedusha, set-apartness, holiness. While not deeply enmeshed in a spirituality of Jewish life, it seems to me, my time spent with Bruce and Shelley, that their mom definitely believed in time that is set apart and sacred, be it for Sunday night dinners or for Jewish holidays, or for more secular occasions, like teaching a loved one to play bridge, or kibitzing with your old friends. She was involved in other mitzvahs as well, including the beauty and glory of what she could create with her hands. Painting, knitting, crocheting. Her creativity touched the work of a needlepoint cloth that used to adorn one of the historic arcs at the Temple Tifereth Israel. In Jewish tradition, this mitzvah is called Hidur mitzvah, beautifying or glorifying an otherwise commanded, required act. She loved adding beauty and glory and prettiness to things that could otherwise be ordinary. Emily told me this morning how much she loved beauty and girly and frilly, colorful things that could otherwise seem plain, and the two of them had that as a special dimension to their relationship. Emily cherishes having shared that kind of joy in shoes and clothing and shopping, noticing the kind of careful hand-stitched fabric with which something might have been made. These were details that Emily and her nanny adored together. It was pretty late in her life, in the early 90s, that Valerie actually began to fulfill yet another mitzvah in Jewish tradition, the mitzvah of Zachor, remembrance. I'm sorry, it was in the early 90s, not her early 90s. I just read my words wrong. But through remembering aloud and presenting to communities her singular survival journey. Though family and friends had asked her of her story in years previous, it would take director Steven Spielberg's invitation to get her to take up the opportunity in the Shoah Project to speak of what had occurred to her in early life. In her humility, she really hadn't considered herself a survivor because she felt that drew so much attention to herself being involved with something dark, sinister. She wanted to focus on opportunities that she seized in life after the Nazis had any dominion over her. The things that life would teach her once she and her family made a life in Cleveland, once she became immersed in a community here and in Shaker Heights, particularly the high school, where she made many lifelong cherished friends. Classes, sorority activities, adventures she never, ever could have imagined early in her life in Europe. And she didn't think of herself as a survivor as well because she hadn't been branded on her arm with a number or victimized by confinement in a concentration camp, but she was a survivor. I remember actually meeting Valerie in the procession line where she stood with several of us in the Jewish community, waiting at Fairmount Temple to march into the sacred procession for the holiday of Yom HaShoah, which means the Day of Remembrance for the Holocaust. The rest of that title is V'Hagvura. Gevura means the resistance to the Holocaust. She was a survivor of that too. She was standing there talking with another survivor. She was accompanying her rabbi into the sanctuary, accompanying Holocaust surviving Torahs. She was on her way to light a candle for the Call Israel Foundation, which carries on that face-to-face education program I mentioned earlier. She radiated warmth and respect to me, but wasn't overly formal to me. But she smiled brightly when I connected with her over my affection for Shelley and her family. Even before we had a chance to speak, though, you could see this was a person who, though she was being honored for an outstanding life, did not see her life as outstanding. She saw it as just one stitch in a larger needlepoint that tells a story way bigger and more beautiful, more dignified than any humility or purpose or poise that she had as her own. Bruce recalls that when he was maybe 7 years old and his mom hurt her back, she laid down, I think maybe on a sofa near enough to see the kitchen, where her eldest child could be instructed at exactly what angle to slice each ingredient and how many pinches of this and dashes of that, precisely what temperature to stir the spaghetti sauce that he would make for dinner. He recognizes this as OCD behavior, which could be exacting, but he also remembers it made for delicious spaghetti sauce that they enjoyed cooking together, not just then, but from that point on. Shelley regards her mom as an ideal mom. In a 75th birthday letter, Shelley described Valerie as a confident, majestic emperor of the family. She went on to recount the individual things that she admired in her mom as an artist, as a wife, as a mother. Over coffee yesterday, Shelley was telling me the best parts of her mom's life were found in multiple times and places. Her mom loved and appreciated the opportunity to be a caregiver to people in need, be that taking care of her mom, caring for her husband when he became ill, or nurturing her and providing daily tasks that would be a ritualized blessing between them. But her mom also loved other activities, and even after Dick had passed away, kept herself so busy that when Shelley might speak to her mom at 9:30 in the morning, Shelley was just beginning to contemplate what she was going to do today, and Valerie was on the fifth thing she had already started to do, or an even longer list. I know that, Shelley, you consider it a privilege to have been able to tell your mom multiple times how much you loved her, how much you love her, and you let that soak in. I'm also aware how hard it has been for you, and similarly for your brother, to see your mom rendered so vulnerable to the fault lines and frailties and the falls and comebacks that have come with dementia and weakness. Even harder it is to accept that, knowing that her gin game hadn't missed a beat. She beat the pants off you like 5 days ago. But her ability to sustain her energies and focus, to bring active caregiving to each of the members of her family at a time when they would face hardship, it got diminished. It's important to acknowledge painful truths that are part of our emotions in grief. The most abundant feeling, though, that I get when talking with Valerie's family, Mark, Carrie, and Matt, yesterday especially, is gratitude for her life. This woman that Carrie and Matt and Emily called Nani, the happiness and affection that she shared with them, and with endeared respect and endeared love for their cousins, her nephew, Dr. Jim Lieberman, and his Belinda. Mark looks back with fondness as well on the ties of over 6 decades since he first met his mother-in-law when he came to pick Shelley up for the 7th grade dance, formal flowers in his hand. If I read it right, he wasn't invited back for another few years, so I think it was Shelley that wasn't sold just yet, but you got her. Mark cherishes the dinners and the travels shared with Valerie and with Shelley's grandmother, and not unlike him, can still recount the deliciousness of Valerie and her mom Ella's chicken paprikash. Carrie and Matt have each decided to share some memories, and they will personally in a moment, but I know that I'd be correct in leading you to the direction that they are feeling, which is that they are more hopeful now because they can hold her memories together in one place. Recently, it hasn't been so easy. Rushing through their mind's eye, though, are sights from sleepovers from when they were kids and going to cultural events, the things that she cherished, special events that she took, special activities that she took each grandchild. Carrie recalls the way her grandmother was sure to attend all the concerts and piano recitals. And I hope I'm not breaking paradigms here when I say that she especially remembers breaking out of what might have been a previously unexpected and sheltered view of what girls were supposed to wear at a bat mitzvah. And instead, she decided to help Carrie to make a tux for a bat mitzvah she was attending. No surprise, putting things together with her hands. Emily told me this morning that she felt that the blankets that were crocheted by grandmothers on each side of her family are cherished parts of her life, because they're projects that someone made effort to do that were just right. Crocheting that no machine can repeat. Only another human being who loves you, even if not always using the words of affection and love, making efforts to demonstrate it. Emily still feels warmed by those blankets when they cover her or just when she sees them across the room. And when her nanny began to lose her verve to stay right in there making an argument, something that she wouldn't have at any earlier age have ever set aside, Emily knew that her grandmother was starting to weaken, perhaps maybe even earlier than others could see it. She said to me that she came to love and appreciate this other version of Nani as well, and always seeks to get enjoyment out of little things that she recognizes with grace, the kinds of challenges that her grandmother had to endure as a little girl that none of us had to face. Friends, as a person lives a life as long as hers, makes a new life, there's so many stories that we can tell, and we should, not just today, but for days and weeks, years to come. This is a person whose accomplishments included building a whole new life in this country, learning a language, graduating from Shaker Heights High School with many friends, enmeshed in joyful activities, continuing her studies at Western Reserve and at the Institute of Art, later meeting and falling in love with a handsome military veteran by the name of Dick. And, as I understand, seeing both him and his cousin simultaneously on dates until Dick would make his move and ask her for marriage just a couple months after discovering. I would see them, their love and affection, for 49 and pretty much, we can round it up to 50 years of devotion, caring, appreciation, and privilege of raising a family together and doing so in relative freedom. There's a biblical psalm that is often leaned on for comfort at times like this. Psalm 90, its composer believed that 70 years and 10, perhaps 80 years or even more, were a good, fulfilling life. But the psalm notes even the best of our years include trouble and sorrow. They pass by speedily. One day we are diminished. And so we are bidden by our tradition to count each moment, to count each day that we acquire a heart of wisdom. And I think that's the legacy that we should most lift up today, her heart of wisdom. She knew paths out of darkness and diminishment that none of the people she ever met knew. And her story must not be buried with her. It is ours to share forever. As the eulogy in that play continues, the rabbi explains about the immigrant woman and her legacy. You can never make that crossing that she made. Such great voyages in the world don't exist anymore. But every day of your lives is the voyage between that place and this one, where you cross every day. In you is that journey. If you listen to those words, you'll travel not just from this funeral home, but to the graveside. When you depart and go back into life, you'll remember that we can't make the same crossings that Valerie made. Voyages as sacred and as courageous and brave as hers don't exist quite the same way anymore. But every day of our lives ahead can be a kind of a voyage that begins with her source going towards our destiny. She lived. She lived and now has died. So let's learn from how she lived. The things she did, the things she could have done better, and the wisdom in her heart the entire way. Amen. I'm going to ask Carrie now to share some of her reflections and memories in this relative moment of peace over there. Don't forget to turn on the mic so that not just here but on the stream they can hear you.
When I think about my Nani, my mind jumps back, not to her time at memory care, but to when I was a kid. There was something so warm and cozy about the spot she sat on at the couch in her condo in the village. I'd snuggle up, and she'd turn on the lamp, and we'd play hand after hand of gin. Or she'd put on her reading glasses and cut my nails ever so slowly, meticulously. It was a warm, quiet calm that is hard to replicate. She rubbed my back while we watched movies, and she always had the TV guide at the ready. I'd sleep over, and in the morning she'd make soft-boiled eggs, taking such care when she buttered my bagel to make sure the butter covered every last corner. And if ever I was in a bad mood when I saw her, she would whisper to me, "If you ever want to run away from a home, you can come right here." What a gift to be loved like that. Nani always told me, "I love you more than you will ever know." But I did know. She showed me every day. We bake together before the holidays every year. Kuchen and kreplach, paprikash and pogachels, nugarol and noodlekugel. We are so lucky we got to do it again this year. 4 generations of mothers and daughters, Great Nani, my mom, Noah, and I. Rolling out dough, filling and pinching, and of course, tasting as we went. Using recipes from her Fairmount Temple cookbook that she gifted to me, but which was inscribed to her as to a very best friend. My Nani had so many lifelong friends. When I was at her house as a kid, it felt like her phone was always ringing, and she'd proudly say, "I've got my granddaughter here," when she answered the phone. She was a true matriarch, the glue that held a big extended family tree together. She seemed to be in touch with all the cousins, and people were always reaching out to her to find out how we were related to our many cousins. She never misplaced her priorities. Family was always the most important, and she would tell me, "Things were just things. You can always replace them." She loved making things for her family, crocheted yarmulkes for all the cousins and pot holders, knitted blankets or scarves, and she even used to crochet hacky sacks for Matt and me. When I think of Nani, the first thing I think of is her warmth and her love for me. But she was also so smart and so strong and so strong-willed. When I look at my daughter Noah, I see so much of her Great Nani in her. Great Nani loved being a great grandma, and she made Noah artwork in Noah's favorite colors, and they shared lollipops and played Uno. Nani and my mom wore 4-leaf clovers around their necks every day, originally gifted to my great-grandma Ella and Nani nearly 93 years ago when Nani was born. Nani buried them to hide them through the Holocaust and dug them back up before they left to start their new lives here. Nani had extras made for me and Emily too, connecting mother to daughter to granddaughters for generations. Nani was a Holocaust survivor, a brave kid who carried around a medical bag and was trained in first aid, sneaking food to Jewish prisoners and sneaking Jews across the border to safety while her dad distracted the guards. Once in hiding, after her father was captured, she and her mother were kicked out, and she, even as a child, figured out what to do to find them a new place to hide. I think the common thread in her life then and later was she was always caretaking, no matter the circumstance, taking charge and caring for the ones she loved. And then after so much horror and loss, started a beautiful life here, full and complete, with love, friendships, and family. Nani, you were brave. You were a brave, resilient, amazing person, and you made me feel so special, so important, and so loved. And I will forever carry that with me, all my love.
When I think of Valerie, I remember her unique personality and character. And when I'm with my mother, Shelley, I see some of Valerie in her. Actually, I see lots of Valerie in Shelley. I also see lots of Valerie in Emily. I see lots of Valerie in Carrie. And I see lots of Valerie in Noah. Valerie's character and personality live on in 3 generations of strong, independent women in our family. Many people ask me, is your family close? I say, yes, we are very close. They ask, are you close to your family? And I say, yes, we are very close. I think it's called the nuclear family for a reason. The bonds that hold a nucleus together inside an atom are the strongest forces in the universe. Our family is close, and the bonds that keep us close are very strong. And I think we're strong because of all of you. Right now, we're in the midst of many challenges. Yet, we remain strong because of all your love and your support. I want to thank you for joining us today to remember and celebrate Valerie's life. We love you. And we especially want to thank Valerie's caretakers, Jean, Debbie, and Tiffany, for their patience and kindness. Thank you, and we love you.
I invite you all to please rise. El מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, חמצי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזכירים, את נשמת ולרי בן אלקטרנה שהלכה לעולמה. בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויתרו בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן. Passionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Valerie Weitz, who has entered eternity. God of mercy, let her find refuge forever, shadow of your wings. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God, you are her inheritance and she yours. May she rest in peace. Let us say, Amen.
could ask those who are acting as pallbearers would kindly step forward, please. Pallbearers, I'm going to ask you now to line up on both sides of the table, please. Pallbearers. Line up on both sides. You're going to reach under the plastic to the handles. Hold on, hold on. All right, pallbearers, you're going to lift together.
We're going to look up on the basket on the handle. We're going to walk towards the double doors.
The members of the family.
Sorry, no, yeah.
This time I'll ask you to step forward directly to the Friends, following the family, I'm going to ask you to step directly to your car. Those of you driving with us to the cemetery, I remind you, you have to turn on your headlights manually. It's daytime and the automatics will not come on automatically. So, kindly step to your cars. You can use the front or rear of the chapel this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.